Alright, this is my 2025 preseason power rankings. The Hall of Fame game is in just 2 days as I'm making this video. So preseason is right around the corner, guys. So this is going to be my first power rankings for the NFL season. I'm not going to be talking about any sort of injuries that are happening or that have happened so far. So I'm not going to mention anything about injuries. Those will not be factored into these rankings. Also, any sort of training camp news as far as like certain players that are showing out or something, I'm not really worried about those right now. These are more so going to be focusing on the big offseason changes that these teams have gone, which we will be talking about here. Starting at number 32 is the Cleveland Browns. They've made big additions of getting in Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco as quarterback. They're in an open quarterback battle. They also brought offensive guard Tevin Jenkins and linebacker Jerome Baker. Solid additions, but they did lose some defensive guys with Jordan Hicks and Juan Thornhill. That's going to hurt them quite a bit. And then Nick Chubb being gone as well. I don't think they're going to be a very good team. Kenny Pickett or Joe Flacco are both going to be a bottom 5 starting quarterback, if whichever one of them starts. If it ends up being Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel, either way, they're going to have a bottom 5 starting quarterback in this league. That's not going to be good, and they're not really good on defense either, especially with some guys they've been losing. Don't have the best weapons offensively. Like, they're just a bad team. 31 is going to be the New Orleans Saints. Similar thing to them with their quarterback situation. Like Spencer Rattler / Tyler Shugg is going to be a bottom 5 quarterback, probably a bottom 3 quarterback in this league, right? They're not going to be very good. Do have some good additions with Justin Reed, David Godchow, and Isaac Yadam. I don't know how to say that name, but some good defensive additions. But again, losing Derek Carr definitely hurts. Losing Tyrann Mathieu and Willie Gay also hurts quite a bit. Number 30 is going to the Tennessee Titans. They made a big addition getting Cam Ward number 1 overall. I think it'll be decent, but still does not have a good enough team around him to really be that good. They did get Kevin Zeitler and Draymond Jones. Those guys should help, but they lost Harold Landry defensively, and they lost a bunch of receivers, losing Tyler Boyd, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, and just recently losing Treylon Burks, who got injured, and then they ended up cutting him. So I don't really know who he's throwing the ball to outside of Calvin Ridley and old man Tyler Lockett. Like, he's going to be struggling offensively. Number 29 is going to be the New York Giants. Made additions getting Russell Wilson. He's an upgrade over Drew Lock or Daniel Jones from last year. They got Javon Holland and Paulson Adebo to help their secondary, but they did lose guys like Isaiah Simmons and Chris Hubbard. So I do think they'll probably be better than last year just because Russell Wilson should be an upgrade at quarterback, but still, they're probably not going to be a very good team. 28 is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. Biggest addition, Pete Carroll. That should be an incredible upgrade at head coach, but overall still not a very good roster. Geno Smith should be an upgrade at quarterback. Jeremy Chin's good defensively, but they also lost a lot of good defensive guys with Christian Wilkins just being very recently, Nate Hobbs, and Trayvon Moehrig. So I do think Pete Carroll's good, a good head coach, and Geno Smith's a solid quarterback, but again, that's not going to be enough to make this team actually good. 27 is the Carolina Panthers. They got Chashawn Wharton, Trayvon Moehrig, and then Rico Dowdle. Some decent additions there, but they also lost guys like Miles Sanders, Jadeveon Clowney, and Xavier Woods. I don't really see this team being much improved from what it was a season ago. The only way it would be really that much improved is if Bryce Young makes a legitimate leap to be a solid starting quarterback in this league. 26 is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Biggest addition I have is Travis Hunter, right? He's likely going to be playing primarily corner, but again, there hasn't really been a whole lot of talk about if they're leaning one way or the other. He really wants to play both ways, and if he's able to do that, that's going to be really, really good for this team because they definitely need him offensively, right? They lost Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, and Evan Ingram in the offseason. They don't really have a whole lot of guys to throw the ball to outside of Brian Thomas, right? So if Travis Hunter can be a wide receiver for them, or at least occasionally, that would be really good. But they also got Patrick McCarry and Jordan Lewis in this offseason. Number 25 is going to be the New England Patriots. They're getting Stephon Diggs with a big addition. Harold Landry, Milton Williams, some really big additions defensively, but they also lost guys like John Jones, David Godchow, and then kicker Joey Sly, but he wasn't very good last year. That's kind of why they don't have him back. But I do like the additions they have on this team, and I could honestly see them being a sneaky, solid team and potentially end up with a winning record, but as of right now, I don't really see that happening. I have to predict them to be pretty low, and 25 is where they come in. Number 24 is the Indianapolis Colts. Biggest addition is getting Daniel Jones at quarterback, even though he might not be very good. He's definitely a notable addition. Travarius Ward and Cam Bynum, good secondary guys, but they did lose Ryan Kelly and Will Fries on their offensive line, Then they lost Joe Flacco, who they replaced with, I think, is probably a downgrade at quarterback with Daniel Jones. Number 23 is going to be New York Jets. They did get Justin Fields after losing Aaron Rodgers. I think that's a slight upgrade. Got some good secondary guys with Andre Sisco and Brandon Stevens, but then they also lost Devontae Adams, who was obviously really good, and they lost Hassan Reddick, who's been really good in the past. Not great last season, but he's still a notable guy that they ended up losing from last season. Number 22 is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they got Aaron Rodgers and lost Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. I think that overall is a downgrade at quarterback, but not by a whole lot. They got DK Metcalf, but they lost George Pickens, so it's kind of a wash there. I think George might be a little bit better, but they're relatively close. And then they got some good corners in Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey, but then they lost a safety in Minkah Fitzpatrick. So they did a pretty good job of getting back what they lost. So it's kind of gonna be we're going to be relatively around the same type of team they were last year. I feel like going to probably be right around 500 or so, because that's just how Mike Tomlin does things. Number 21 is going to be the Chicago Bears. Got some really good offensive lineman additions with Joe Tooney and Jonah Jackson. Trey Flowers is good too, and they lost guys like Gerald Everett, who's just pretty old. Lost DeMarcus Walker, and they lost Tevin Jenkins, but again, they replaced the offensive guard position, so Tevin Jenkins missing is not really harming them. Number 20 is the Seattle Seahawks. They got Sam Darnold as a replacement for Geno Smith. I think he's probably better than Geno Smith. He definitely was last season. I think he'll probably be a decent amount worse this year than he was last year, which is why I have the Seahawks lower than you might want me to. They also got Cooper Kupp, but they lost DK Metcalf. That's a downgrade there. And then they also lost Tyler Lockett, so the receiving core is looking a little bit thin. And they did get Jaron Reed, who's pretty good on the defensive line as well. Number 19 is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. They got Josh Sweat, a good linebacker, Dalvin Tomlinson, a good D tackle, and then Will Johnson, who should be a really good corner. So they got one good guy at every 3 levels of the defense, so that is good. But they also lost some good defensive guys in Kaiser White, Roy Lopez, and Grady Jarrett. Next up is the Atlanta Falcons. Big additions of Leonard Floyd. He should be good. Mike Hughes and Morgan Fox. Some really good defensive additions, but they also did lose Drew Dahlman, and then some defensive guys in Justin Simmons and Nate Landman. Number 17 is the Minnesota Vikings. Good additions of Donovan Jackson, Ryan Kelly, and Isaiah Rodgers, but they lost Sam Darnold, who I think is certainly better than J.J. McCarthy was last year. J.J. McCarthy didn't play, but Sam Darnold was a top 5 to top 10 quarterback last season. I don't think J.J. McCarthy is going to be a top 5 to top 10 quarterback this season, so definitely a downgrade there. Lose Cam Bynum and lose Cam Robinson as well. Number 16 is the Dallas Cowboys. They did get some decent running backs with Miles Sanders and Devontae Williams, but overall, running back core is still pretty bad. They lost Pico Dowdle, and they replaced him with 2 other mid running backs. Like, the running back room is very, very mid. They did get George Pickens, who should be good for offense. Kyrie Elam's pretty good as well. They did lose Amani Oruware, so they kind of replaced him with Kyrie Elam. Losing Brandon Cooks, but George Pickens is definitely better than him. And they did lose DeMarcus Lawrence, which I think is definitely going to hurt them defensively. Number 15 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They got Hassan Reddick, who should be pretty good, Ben Bredesen, good lineman, and then re-signed Chris Godwin, which there's a lot of reports that saying he was not going to re-sign like pretty much all season, but they were able to retain him, and that is definitely a good thing for Tampa Bay. They did lose guys like Shaq Barrett and Robert Hansey, and as well as linebacker KJ Britt. But overall, I do think they're going to be relatively around the same type of team they were a season ago, being like a 9-8, 10-7 type team, and probably win the NFC South. Number 14 is going to be the Miami Dolphins. If they're healthy, they're definitely a top 14 team in this league. Come on now. James Daniels, good lineman. Minkah Fitzpatrick, a good safety. I think he's a slight upgrade over Javon Holland. Getting Nick Westbrook-Akine, he was pretty good for Tennessee last year. He can be a good addition to them as well. Losing Teron Armstead is going to hurt. Losing Emmanuel Ogbah is going to hurt. But I do think they have rebounded relatively well. And if they can stay healthy, they're easily a top 14 team in this league. Number 13 is San Francisco 49ers. Big addition is getting Robert Saleh back as a defensive coordinator. That should help out their defense because they did lose good amount of defensive guys that we'll get into in a minute, but they did add Bryce Huff, and they added Demarcus Robinson, a receiver who I think is going to be solid, but certainly not as good as a Deebo Samuel, who they ended up losing in a trade here, so that's obviously not ideal. And then losing Talanoa Hufanga and Charvarius Ward in the secondary, definitely not ideal as well. But again, I think Robert Saleh can kind of help balance out the losses that they have defensively, but still have some very, very big defensive losses that are not ideal. Number 12 is the Green Bay Packers. Good additions of Aaron Banks to their offensive line, Nate Hobbs and Isaiah Simmons, but they lost guys like Jair Alexander, definitely a downgrade going from Alexander to Hobbs. Lost A.J. Dillon, who didn't really play last year. He was injured, but still someone that I thought they should have re-signed. So losing him, I think, is still notable. And they lost offensive tackle Andre Dillard. Number 11 is going to be the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, they were a playoff team last year. They should be kind of a similar team to what they were a season ago. Bringing in Davante Adams is really good. He's definitely an upgrade over Cooper Kupp, but also losing to Marcus Robinson makes their receiving core a little bit slim. But having Puka Nacua and Davante Adams is a very, very good 1-2 tandem. Also getting Puno Ford and Nate Landman, really good there. Losing offensive lineman Jonah Jackson definitely could hurt you, but I think they made up for it defensively. And again, Matthew Stafford having Puka and Davante Adams to throw the ball to, he should be having a field day offensively. Number 10 is the Los Angeles Chargers. Good addition of Najee Harris. They did lose J.K. Dobbins, but I think Najee Harris is better than J.K. Dobbins, at least a little bit. That's definitely an upgrade in my opinion. Bringing in Mekhi Becton, really good offensive lineman. And then a good corner in Benjamin St. Juste. I don't know how to say that, but I think he'll be solid. Losing guys like Joey Bosa obviously hurts. Puno Ford obviously hurts. And then Josh Palmer. Their wide receiver core is pretty thin. And their defensive line definitely took a downgrade. Even though their defense wasn't very good last season, took even more of a hit this offseason. Number 9 is going to be the Denver Broncos. Very, very good additions for them. I really love what the Broncos have done this offseason. Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, both from San Francisco, both amazing defensive talents. Evan Ingram, great tight end. The Broncos didn't have a lot of good receiving targets last year for Bo Nix. Tight end was definitely a big hole for their roster. Evan Ingram is a great tight end in this league. Javonte Williams, losing him. I mean, he's a depth running back, I guess, but he was pretty bad last year anyway, so they're fine with losing him. Cody Barton lost him, and they lost their punter, Riley Dixon. They have like a 6th-round rookie punter this year, so hopefully the new punter can be good, or else they're going to probably regret losing Riley Dixon, but it's just a punter. I'm not worried about it too much. Number 8 is the Cincinnati Bengals. Getting Shamar Stewart, they finally agreed to a contract with. He should be a good addition to this roster defensively. Lucas Patrick, good offensive lineman. Taven Bryan, a good D tackle as well. Did lose some key defensive guys in Mike Hilton and Joe Bacci, as well as offensive lineman Trent Brown. Overall, I like what they did on the defensive line, but otherwise defensively, not great things going on, which is definitely concerning considering this defense was really bad last season. They're going to need it to be pretty good this year if they want to be, a legitimate Super Bowl contender, which I feel like they obviously want to be with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. But if their defense does not play much better, then they're going to really struggle with that. But number 7 is going to be the Washington Commanders. Really good stuff going on with them. Getting Deebo Samuel is going to be really good for their offense. Laremy Tunsil should be good for their offense. And Von Miller, a good depth, a good veteran guy for their defense. But they also lost a lot of good defensive talent. Dante Fowler, Jonathan Allen, and Jeremy Chin. So losing those DNs and that safety definitely hurts. Von Miller helps your defense, but it doesn't really help where your defense needed it based on their key departures that they've had this offseason. But overall, their offense should be amazing. Their defense is going to be very questionable. Very similar type of team to the Cincinnati Bengals. Number 6, Buffalo Bills. Really good addition of Joey Bosa. I think it's going to be great for Buffalo. Josh Palmer is a good wide receiver, and Larry Ogunjobi is a good D tackle, but they lost some good defensive guys in Micah Hyde and Von Miller. Definitely worried about the secondary a little bit. There wasn't great secondary last year. Losing Micah Hyde definitely hurts that. Von Miller was a good depth veteran there. But also losing Amari Cooper, who wasn't great for you guys last year. Getting Josh Palmer to replace him, I guess, is fine, but probably a downgrade, certainly on paper, for Buffalo at the wide receiver position. Number 5 is going to be the Houston Texans. It's a good addition of Nick Chubb. Hopefully he can be healthy and play like close to prime Nick Chubb. He's probably not going to be a top 3 running back in the league anymore. If he can play like a top 10 running back, which I think he can in Houston with some more health than he had a season ago, I think he could be a really good running back for them. And definitely probably the best RB2 behind Joe Mixon, right? That's like the floor. He should at least be the best RB2 in the league behind Joe Mixon. that shouldn't be debatable. Then we got Cam Robinson, a good tackle, and then C.J. Gardner-Johnson, a really good safety. He has some head-scratching moments, but that is a very good addition. Definitely an upgrade over Eric Murray, in my opinion. Losing Laramie Tunsil hurts, but Cam Robinson is a solid enough replacement. And then losing Stephon Diggs definitely hurts as well, but it's not like they're really hurting at the receiver position with Tank Dell, Nico Collins, John Mechie, guys like that. Losing Stephon Diggs definitely hurts, but it doesn't kill you. Number 4 is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. Bringing in DeAndre Hopkins is something, I guess. He wasn't really doing much for Kansas City. Maybe he can do something for Baltimore, but at least he's a depth guy for them, so he's better than nothing, but definitely not like a huge pickup for them. But getting guys like Jair Alexander and Chidobe Awuzie, really good secondary pickups for them. They lost some secondary guys in Brandon Stevens and Marcus Williams, but I think they've made up for it relatively well. Patrick McCarry, also a good offensive lineman that they did lose. So overall, offense probably got a little bit worse with the offensive line, but defensively they stayed relatively the same in my opinion. Number 3 are the Philadelphia Eagles. Bringing in Azeez Ojulari and Josh Uche are some really good linebackers that will help them out. A.J. Dillon should be a good depth running back, but losing a lot of defensive guys for them is definitely going to hurt. Josh Sweat was a good linebacker. Definitely better than Ojulari and Uche individually, but getting 2 of those guys maybe makes up for it, sure. But losing Milton Williams, that's a good piece that you lost. Losing C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Darius Slay, and James Bradbury all in your secondary, definitely concerning, right? I don't think their secondary is going to be very good this year, which is obviously a problem. I do have them this high, mostly because they won the Super Bowl last year. I don't want to disrespect them too much, but right now I have a lot of concerns about their defense. But still, won the Super Bowl last year, amazing offense. Should be still like a good enough defense to be a playoff team, and I think they easily could be a Super Bowl contender again if their defense was just a little bit better than I think they could. Number 2, Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, can you have them any less than a top 3 team? I have them at number 2. Went to the Super Bowl last year. Didn't really lose a whole lot. Losing Justin Reed definitely hurts, but losing DeAndre Hopkins, like, he wasn't really doing much for them. And as long as their receivers can be healthy, like Rashee Rice, if he doesn't get suspended, or even after suspension is just healthy. Hollywood Brown, if he's healthy. Xavier Worthy takes a little bit of an improvement, right? Like, their receiving course should be fine without DeAndre Hopkins. He didn't do much for them again. Deshaun Watson is a good depth D tackle, but not a huge piece. Justin Reed is really only the key guy that they lost this offseason, and they replaced him with a corner in Christian Fulton. I think is pretty solid. Elijah Mitchell is a good depth running back, and then Jalen Moore should help their offensive line, as well as the rookie that they drafted, Donovan Jackson. Definitely should help their offensive line, which was their main issues anyways. Number 1 is going to be the Detroit Lions. You could probably have guessed it by now. They did lose some key guys, but they got guys like DJ Reed, Roy Lopez, and Grant Stewart. One good guy, all 3 levels of the defense that they brought in. That's a really good sign. They did lose guys like Zadarius Smith, Jalen Reeves-Maybin, some good defensive guys, and then center Frank Ragnow. That's going to be the biggest loss in my opinion. They did not replace him with a notable name, or at least that I have found that is like a legitimate notable name to be that new starting center. But overall, the offensive line should still be pretty good. Defense maybe takes a small step down in the D-line, losing Zadarius Smith. But overall, the defense should still be pretty good. I think they're the best team in the league. As of today, they would probably be my pick. They're not necessarily my Super Bowl pick, but they're who I think should be considered the favorite to win the Super Bowl as of right now. But that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check back next week for an updated power rankings list. And let me know if you think it's kind of crazy that we have a football game in July in the NFL.